Hey guys, it's Kate and I hope you're having a wonderful day. I'm going to make a couple of easy Christmas cards. They're mixed media. I've got my oh my gosh, Mozart Kohlrabi watercolor palette, and I've got some really inexpensive watercolor paper here. This is Artist Loft cellulose paper from Michaels. And what I've got is I cut their 6x9 pad in half. So I've got two pieces of 4.5 by 6, and then on the back I've got them taped to my little clipboard here, because what I'm going to do is a watercolor wash over both, but I want it to go all the way to the edge. And so what I'm going to do is actually put these onto a card, which I really like to do. That way I can get just regular cardstock cards and use my watercolor paper sparingly. And also it really helps when you want to do that edge to edge. You don't have any kind of going behind it or underneath. So I'm going to start by doing some very sort of abstract backgrounds. I've got my watercolor palette moist and my little spray bottle, and I'm going to get these pretty saturated first. So then I'm going to grab my quill brush and just spread that water around a little bit so it's evenly distributed. I'm not going to be, too picky about anything really. And I think I'm going to do mixed media. I've got some magazine paper and I want to try a little experiment. I'm going to do a couple of different things. Got a little something on my paper, so just getting that off. All right, so I'm going to dip into I think some sort of Christmassy colors. I think for this one, I might do a little bit of an olive green and just start dropping that in some places. I'm going straight out of the pan, but I'm just being a little bit easy with my color. I don't want it to be too dark, but I do want a decent amount of color. And just keep in mind that your color will lighten as it dries. So I've got olive green. I'm going to dip next into the grass green, which is a little bit darker, and just spread that on the paper. And since my paper is pretty wet, it's going to spread out pretty nicely. And I don't even mind if I get a little bit of cauliflowering. I'm kind of embracing the texture on these cards. And sometimes you like that as a background. So I'm just going to add some more color in here and just get it sort of blended into the paper a bit. Make sure I get my edges pretty well. And then I'm going to darken up just a little bit here and add in some more of this olive green. It's got a little bit of fading going on, so I'm just going to get the color where I want it. All right. Now for this one, I think I'm going to go more for the blues. So I think I'll start with the deep blue in the palette. And that's kind of a nice, sort of cool blue. And it's, I think, a really beautiful color in this palette. So I'm just going to spread that around on here. And I might go into a little bit of this turquoise, which is one of my favorites in the Kohlrabi palette. It just has that really rich, beautiful jewel tone. So I'm going to take another little dip and spread that out on here. And I kind of like how that bloomed right there. That's pretty. I might actually keep that just how it is. And then get in a little bit more of this deep blue, just like that. Now I'm going to just tilt this a little bit, kind of help some of this color move around. I don't really want to see my brush marks, so I'm just gonna help it along a little bit. And like I said, I might get a little cauliflowering here, and that's okay. Might even do a little spray and just kind of let it flow. And that way it can all kind of blend together and soften. And it's really nice when you're able to use a flat area like this and have your paper attached, because it just helps, you can make gravity work for you. So I am going to set this aside to dry. Okay, so while that's drying, I grabbed a magazine page, and this is just a very, aged page filled with text. I pulled a recipe page from a vintage Victoria magazine, and what I'm going to do is cut out some shapes. So I think on one card I'm going to do a Christmas tree, and on the other card I'm going to do a snowflake. So what I'm going to do is grab my pencil and sketch a rough drawing of a tree. And you can, if you can draw a triangle, you can make a Christmas tree, and you can spice it up however you want. I think I am going to make some very simple, sort of narrow triangles. And I'm going to layer those on my card, and I'm going to make 3 different sizes here. And ignore that. And I'm going to cut those out. And these can be rough. It's totally fine. Okay, so I've got my 3 trees here. I'm just going to grab a scrap sheet of paper, and I am going to put a thin layer of gesso on all of these. So I'm going to grab my gesso, and I'll even just put a little dollop right here on my scrap paper, moisten my brush a little bit, and spread some out on my tree. So what I want here is the gesso to knock back some of that text and kind of brighten it up a bit, but still be able to see that text coming from behind. It's just going to be kind of toned down. And so the gesso is going to really help with that. Now you could color these more. You could put watercolor over the gesso. It's totally fine. And because I'm working on magazine paper, it's curling up, as you can see, with the moisture. But that's totally fine too, because we're going to be gluing it to our card. So it's going to end up being flat when we're done. All I want to make sure of is that as it dries, it's not going to stick to itself. So I'm just going to kind of bend down or bend up the bottom of that tree so that it can dry without gluing itself together. Okay, so we've got our trees. Next, I am going to cut out a roughly the shape of a square. And it doesn't have to be exact, just kind of eyeball it. And it should be roughly the size of your card. And I might make multiple of these, but if you've ever made those fold up and cut Christmas snowflakes, that's what we're going to do here. You know what? First, I think I'm going to paint it, because that's going to really help with the painting process. And it might even help with your trees. So if you want to put a quick layer of gesso on your paper before starting your snowflake, that would probably be good. Just going to get a little bit more gesso. And I'm just sort of messily applying it. I just want to get a decent coat, but it can be thin. And just like with the trees, I'm going to kind of bend this up a little bit so it doesn't curl quite so much. And I think I'm going to do one more square. And maybe I'll make a bit of a smaller one. Just like this. And I'll get this one painted also. All right, we are dry and I am back, and I decided I'm just going to use the larger square to make a single snowflake. One reason being, when you fold it, the other one I made is just going to be a little bit too small, and I want it to be a little bit easier to work with. So what I'm going to do is fold this in half, and you can trace too. I'm just going to do a very loose snowflake. So fold it in half, fold it in half again, and then I'm going to fold it diagonally once. And this is going to give us kind of a square shaped snowflake. So when you consider you have your open side here and this side is closed, this is going to be what connects everything. So you don't want to cut all of this off or your snowflake won't work. But when you unfold this, this is going to be your outside edge. This is the edge that goes around everything. So when we finish our cut, this is going to be what determines the shape of your snowflake. So you can kind of have fun and just make some interesting shapes. I'm going to keep it pretty simple, and I'm going to kind of help it along because this is going to be a bit of a square shape since I didn't have too many folds. So what I'm going to do is make a nice narrow piece after I cut into my shape, and I'm going to even bring this in a little bit and cut it across, and then I'm going to come in some more and then come in right here from the bottom and meet it. Just like this. So we've got our shape. I still have my big fold here, and then I've got the other folded edge. So I'm going to come in here and do another shape and come straight down. So I end up with a snowflake shape like this. Now this is my point that is going to be the center. What I'm going to do is just cut the very tip off, so I have a little bit of a hole in the middle when we unfold. And then on this long edge, I'm just going to make some little indent marks, some really tiny cutouts, just like that. And I'm just going to do a couple. And let's see what we've got. So we'll start unfolding it and flattening it out, and we should have a pretty fun little snowflake shape. And depending on how narrow you make your cuts, it might be a little bit delicate, so just be careful there. And then we'll flatten it out, and this is going to be our snowflake. And like I said, you can play around with your shapes and your cuts, and you can do it on scrap paper just to make sure that you get a shape you like. And if you want, you can even sketch it out before you start cutting. I just wanted to go a little bit freestyle today, so this is what is going to go on our card. So my watercolor paper is completely dry, and so on my left side I'm going to put my trees. And so for this, what I think I'm going to do is, because this magazine paper is so thin and I don't want it to crinkle up and you know, curl up when I get it wet, what I'm first going to do is use a glue stick to get these down, and then once everything's done, I can actually go over with a fixative or a matte medium or anything like that just to kind of lock everything in place. But first, I'm going to do just a glue stick, and I'm just going to use this scrap piece of paper to rub my glue on it. And you can do all kinds of different things with this. Right now, I think what I'll do is have my medium tree here, just like that. And then I'll put my larger tree kind of to the side a little bit. Let me pull this up and then get it stuck down right there. And then last but not least, I'm going to put my little tree in the center. And you can do any kind of arrangement that you like. I might bring this down just a little bit. Just like that. All right. Now for the snowflake. And I'm going to put it maybe right about there. All right. Let's get this on. I'm just going to grab a, let's see, I'm going to do it on my magazine and just get it coated well. And I'm going to be careful not to mess up my little snowflake edges. Now, if your snowflake's a little bit large, you can trim it. And I might actually do that on the edge of my paper. So what I might do is get it a little bit off center here, because I maybe like to put my sentiment down on the bottom left. So what I will do is stick this down and let it come off the edge of my card. So I will get this on here, press down well. If you don't get it to stick, you can always add more glue to a couple of these edges, just like that. And then what I can do is pull this off of my tape background and cut the excess right along the edge, just like this. So then you have a nice snowflake kind of coming in from the side, and it gives that little bit of extra interest. Now I'm still going to have some of my edges kind of coming up where I didn't glue, but I can seal all that in later. So another thing you can do is to give yourself some extra contrast. You can get inks out, you can doodle on these, use colored pencil or a fine liner. You can get your metallic watercolors. I mean, once you have this base going, you can really do anything you want. I think what I'm going to do here is grab my colored pencils. And so I grabbed a green one here, and I am just going to lightly outline my trees so that I have a bit more contrast, making it stand out from the background. And you can make these sketchy lines, whatever you like. And I'm just going to go around the edges real quick. And I think I like this. And I might just make a few little scribble marks. Just like that. And then with my blue, just go lightly around the outside of my snowflake. Now I think with my trees, I might do one final touch, and that is to go back into my olive green and do a bit of a base, just like this, and darken it up a bit right here at the bottom. And that way we kind of have a ground to put everything on. Just like that. And then for my snowflake, I think what I might like to do is grab some of this metallic blue, and I'm going to add some little sparkly splashes to this. And that will be a good glittery finish. And maybe I could do that a bit here with the metallic green on my trees. I do love my splashes. And then you can handwrite or stamp a sentiment on these, anything you want. So it's still wet, but I'm going to just give you a close-up, and I hope this gives you a little bit of an idea on what you can do with just some scrap magazine paper or paper with text. It can be an old book or anything, and it just gives a nice little look, and you can use all kinds of different shapes. So I hope you enjoyed this video today, and hopefully it gave you some ideas. If you like it, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, keep creating.